Well, hey there everybody, Abby from Abbi Kirsten Collections here, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make faux leather earrings with the help of your Cricut machine. First, I want to mention to download these templates below. They are linked in the video description for you, just below this video. You'll be able to find the templates to download so you can follow along with this tutorial exactly. We include the teardrop shape as well as this little overlay where you see the water's edge here. So let's talk about the supplies that you're going to need when you're making this particular craft, as well as faux earrings in general with your Cricut machine. So first, I am going to be using a Cricut Maker for this project. I want to note that you can use any of the Cricut machines to cut your faux leather with. That would be the Cricut Explorer 2, the Explorer 3, the original Maker, the Maker 3, the Cricut Joy. Any of those are going to work for your paper thin faux leather. Our other materials are going to include your faux leather, of course. Choose it in colors that are going to complement this type of theme, or if you're creating a different theme, then choose them in the complementary colors. I'm going to be using like blues and sand colors here, things that are very beachy. I'm going to be using iron-on vinyl in order to create that water effect that you see here, and then cover the back of our earring as well so that both sides of our earring are nice and pretty. For our iron-on vinyl, you're also going to need to have a weeding tool in hand to weed it once we cut that out. For the faux leather, you may want to have a brayer tool to push your material to the mat and some painter's tape to hold it in place. I recommend using the Cricut Strong Grip mat for the faux leather, and you can use the standard grip mat for the iron-on, but I've also used the Strong Grip mat for the iron-on as well, and that works perfectly fine. Since we're going to be using iron-on with our faux leather, you need to have some sort of heat press. So I'm using the Easy Press Mini here, but you could use a full-size Easy Press. You're just going to have to kind of, work with the size of it and be mindful of where you're positioning things. The Easy Press Mini is great for faux leather earrings though. Because we want to protect the surface of our faux leather, I recommend having some uncoated butcher paper to protect the surface of it, because you don't want to put the direct heat plate onto the faux leather. That could ruin the project. Believe me, I've learned the hard way. In order to punch the hole into our earrings, once they've been cut out from our Cricut, you're going to want to have some sort of leather punch. This is what I recommend, and there are supplies and resources for all of this below in the video description. So this is really handy to have for faux leather earrings because you can set different widths for the circle, and it punches very effortlessly. I do not like to recommend the Cricut cutting the little hole out because it is so tiny that often it will either tear the material, it won't cut all the way through, or it'll shift things and you end up with ruined material and an earring that's not going to work. So for consistency's sake, I recommend having some sort of a leather punch. And these you can find below in the video description. I have links for them with the post that goes with this, and you'll be able to find all of that information below for you. Lastly, you're just going to choose your charms for your particular earrings. Like I said, I'm doing dolphins here and turtles. You could do starfish, you could do seashells, you could do whale tails, crabs, anything like that that kind of matches the water's edge effect that we're doing here. You'll need some sort of earring holders, so some basic little loop earrings here is what I'm using that will be like the dangling earring effect. So you can find those at craft stores or resources below as well. I am going to be using jump rings as well to create this dangling effect. You're going to need at least 3 4mm jump rings and 1 6mm jump ring for each earring. In order to open and close our jump rings, I like to use these jewelry needle nose pliers. Make sure they're jewelry friendly because otherwise they may have teeth on the inside that are going to ruin and scratch your jump rings and your other materials here. All right, so let's go ahead and do a quick review in Design Space to make sure you're set up for success. And then let's go ahead and make these really cute faux leather earrings with our Cricut machine.
Okay, so here we are in Cricut Design Space, and I just want to cover a couple quick things. If you're brand new to Design Space, you're going to need to download this template, which again, you can find below this video, and you can bring this into Cricut Design Space. So if you've never uploaded anything to Design Space before, you'll need to visit this upload button over here on your left-hand side. You'll need to click on Upload Image, and then browse your computer to wherever you saved the downloaded file. Click on the SVG file and bring it in. If you need more help on this, then go ahead and visit the link that is below in the video description, where you can find an in-depth tutorial on uploading SVGs to Cricut Design Space. So once you bring this file in, you're going to see two sets here. And the reason I did two sets is if we take this apart, and to take apart, you may need to hit the ungroup button at the top over here. If you take these apart, you'll notice that it's basically the reverse. So I wanted to supply two options to where if you need to have the top half of the earring as the iron-on or the bottom half of the earring as the iron-on, you have that option for yourself. So you'll just choose whichever one of these sets is going to work best for your colors and material that you're selecting or what you might have on hand. So for me, for example, I'm using a dark faux leather, and then I'm going to be using a lighter blue iron-on. So I want this set here because I want to be able to put the light blue iron-on top of the faux leather. So this is the set that's going to work well for me. These two over here are going to be the back. So this is going to be iron-on as well. And technically, I am going to choose this color for the back of my earrings. So this will be iron-on, and we're going to place that on the back side of the faux leather, and then this will be iron-on, and then this is our faux leather base here. It would be the reverse here if perhaps you just need to do a different combination, then that is available for you below. So I'm just going to group these and hide that. And then the last thing you're going to think about is the size. So I have these set to about 1.7, just over 1.7 in height. You can go slightly smaller if you want. I wouldn't go too much smaller. You can go a little bigger, of course, if you want as well. Just always make sure you scale as a group so that you do not accidentally change the proportions here and everything's going to line up properly for you. Of course, always make sure you save your projects so that you can return to them anytime you want. And let's go ahead and click on the Make It button at the top here. And it's going to separate our projects out. So since this mat here is going to be our iron-on vinyl, we do want to mirror it because iron-on vinyl has to be cut in the reverse because we have to put the material basically upside down on our mat. So we need to mirror it so that's going to be the right direction when we cut it out. This mat here will be our faux leather. There's nothing you really have to do on this mat, but as an extra tip, I do like to say if you click on each one of these and move these cuts slightly away from the top corner, it can be helpful because we're going to be placing painter's tape here to really steady that faux leather material. And having that not disrupt the cut with the painter's tape overlapping can be helpful. So I like to pull these just slightly away from the corner when I'm working with the faux leather. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click continue, and it's going to connect to our Cricut machine. Again, I'm using the Maker 3, but any of the Cricut machines are going to work for this project. So if you click on Browse All Materials, you'll be able to see your faux leather options here. I'm going to stick with the faux leather paper thin, which is going to be the best setting for like the Cricut Joy machine. But they have other options here too if you're using a slightly thicker faux leather, like the shimmer and the metallic is thicker. And then for this mat up here, you're going to need to make sure that it is like the iron-on setting or the glitter iron-on setting. I also want to note on this one here that if you select any of these materials, you can always up the pressure to more if you just need a little extra pressure to get that material to cut through. So I'm just bringing that to your attention there, that's available as a drop down.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my materials here. I'm going to start with my glitter iron-on here. I'm just going to use the strong grip mat, though you can use the standard grip mat as well. Make sure you place it shiny side down. That's why we have to mirror, is because we're basically putting this in the reverse. So shiny side down. If you have any trouble getting your material to stick to your mat, try using a brayer tool to push the material on. Or if your mat's been well used, you may need to replace your mat. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and load this up, and it's going to cut out. I'm just using the standard fine point blade for this, which comes with any of the Cricut machines. All right, so this is done. I'm just peeling my mat away from my material here. And we only cut right up here at the top. So I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and trim that down. I'm going to grab a weeding tool here, and we're just going to weed this. Get the extra vinyl off. Nice and easy. All right, there we go. So our iron-on vinyl is cut out. We're going to set that aside. And let's go ahead and cut out our faux leather now. So for me, I'm going to be using this, just one of my favorite colors. This is by Cricut, and I have a resource for you below. Now, for the paper thin faux leather, It's really not necessary if you have a good sticky mat to put the painter's tape. However, if I was using this faux leather where it has more of a canvas backing to it, it's a little bit thicker, then I would recommend the painter's tape. If you're using like a chunky glitter by chance or something like that, you probably are going to want to opt to put it face down so that it's actually cutting through the backing rather than through the front, which is going to be more effective. So in that case, I would recommend mirroring the design in Cricut Design Space. So that's going to depend on what type of leather you're using, which is not the case for me here, but I just want to make that note. Okay, so you can take your painter's tape and tape along the edges if you're using a thicker faux leather. For example's sake, I'll show you here, but for mine, because it's so paper thin, it's sticking really well and it's really not all that necessary. Oftentimes I'll just put it kind of right up here at the right-hand corner because this is where it's going to be cutting. So I'm just going to leave it like that, and then we're going to go ahead and load this cut up. All right, so my cut's done. We're going to go ahead and unload this. We're going to start by peeling up. If you have painter's tape, go ahead and peel that up first. And that over here. All right, so here are our faux leather pieces all ready to go. Okay, so there we go. So the next step here is going to be to add on our iron-on and to punch our holes before we start adding on the actual earring and the jump rings and our little charm. All right, so we have our faux leather pieces here, and I'm going to start by flipping them over so that the pretty side is facing down. I have my Easy Press Mini here. I'm going to set it to the lowest setting because generally you want to be very careful with the amount of heat that you're putting on your faux leather. So start with your lowest setting. If you're using a full-size press, I would recommend maybe like around 220 for the heat, so nothing too high. We can always up the heat if we need to or press a little bit longer, but you don't want to go too hot. So I'm just going to take a pair of scissors here and trim the liner of our iron-on here so I can place these separately. We're going to start with the back side here. So we're just going to line these up. Just give yourself a minute to get it aligned here. That's pretty well aligned. Now our faux leather is protected here because we are using this iron-on on the back side and it's fully covered by this liner. So it's not a super big deal up with the whole uncoated butcher paper. We're gonna be using that more on the front side in just a minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take my Easy Press Mini and I'm gonna hold it for maybe about 15 seconds. So I'm going to give this one a second to cool before I try removing the liner. It's usually best to do a cool peel on these, meaning you don't want to peel it when it's piping hot. So give it a little time, at least a minute or two to start to cool down before you try and lift anything. I'm going to go ahead and press this one here. Of course, you want to make sure you're using a heat-safe surface, so this is just an easy press mat. All right, so this one we started with has had a second to cool, so I'm going to go ahead and start pulling that liner away. And that comes off just fine. If it doesn't for any reason, go ahead and press it for another 10 seconds, let it cool, and then try again. Okay, so the next step now is to do the water's edge for this particular earring piece. So I'm just gonna go ahead and line this up. Again, at the top here, kind of check the back and the front. All right, so now for this piece, because we have sort of a slight texture to the front of our faux leather, you do want to take some uncoated butcher paper and you want to cover it so that it's extra protected from the heat. So I'm going to go ahead and press this for about 15 seconds. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my hole punch. This is my leather hole punch, and I have it set on the smallest setting because these earrings here are not that large, so I don't want to go too big on the hole. And I'm just going to take a second to line it up. This is one of those things that you just kind of have to eyeball. There's really not, if you want to like mark it slightly right where you're going to punch it so that it punches out the mark, you could do that with a pen. I have just learned to eyeball it, okay, and then give it a little bit of a punch. And then you might have to work out that little piece there. So I am using 3 4mm jump rings and then 1 6mm jump ring. The 6mm jump ring is going to connect to the actual earring piece that goes into your ear, while the 3 4mm ones are going to connect to our dolphin charm, and that's going to give it some length to dangle down to the center part of our earring here. So I'm going to start with using my jewelry pliers here. Again, make sure you're using something that doesn't have teeth. So all I'm doing here is opening up the 4mm jump rings. I opened one up and I'm adding 2 to the other one. So there'll be 2 hanging off of one. And then we're going to close the jump ring up here. So our chain of 3 4mm jump rings. Now we need to open up the 6mm jump ring and add it to the chain of 3. While this 6mm jump ring is open, you're also going to add on the earring piece. So we're adding on our chain of 3. Then you're also going to add on your earring piece for your ear, as well as your faux leather piece. So I have my faux leather here, and we're going to go ahead and loop that 6mm one right through, and then close this up. So at this point, you have added on your faux leather earring base here, your teardrop, your 3 4mm jump rings, and your 1 6mm jump ring to the actual earring loop. The only part that's left now is to add on our actual charm to the very bottom 4mm jump ring. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to reopen the bottom 4mm jump ring to loop our little charm on here. So I'm adding on my charm, and then we just have to close this up. You can see here that we have our charm added to our set of 3 4mm jump rings, our 6mm jump ring added to the earring itself, as well as to the loop of the earring that's going to go into your ear. And that is how you would make these really cute faux leather earrings with your Cricut machine.
If you enjoyed this tutorial, I hope to see you in my member vault. Of course, we offer many free things on Abbi Kirsten Collections, but I also have a premium member vault where you can access every design I have ever made. There is tons of seasonal crafts in there, Cricut tutorials, printables, cheat sheets, SVG files, and so much more waiting for you. So I hope you will hop on board with that. You can find all the information below, and there are loads of more creative ideas and tutorials waiting for you. We add new projects every single month, so there's always something new every time you log in. I hope to see you there. Bye for now.